He knelt. That is the moment. Not the battles. Not the staff. Not the trickery with the poppies and the straw dummy and the single strike that put Ionia's greatest swordsman on the ground. Before all of that, before any of that, a Vastaya who had never knelt for anything in his life looked at the man who had defeated him every single day for weeks and put his knee down and asked to be taught. He did not know at that moment why he was fighting. He had not yet been asked, but he knew that whatever he was becoming required learning from this person, and that learning from this person required something he had not previously been willing to produce. The asking was harder than the fighting. That was when it started. His name is Wukong, and the story of how a Vastaya with a talent for chaos became the last student of Wuju is also the story of two people who found, in each other, the questions they needed someone else to ask. New here? Subscribe. Every week, a League of Legends story told the way it deserves to be heard. The Shimon live in the highest places. Their villages are built in the canopy of Ionia's oldest trees, not because they cannot descend, but because height is a choice that expresses something about who they are. They are wise, careful, peaceful in the comprehensive way of a culture that has decided nonviolence is not a constraint but a value. They see existence as a climb, each life a step upward toward wisdom, and when it ends, the body returning to stone, to soil, to the beginning of the next climb. Everything is ascent. Nothing is wasted. The world below, with its conflicts and its noise, is something they observe from a distance and keep at precisely that distance. Kong did not inherit this temperament. He had the intelligence. The Shimon are not peaceful because they are simple, and neither was Kong. He had the agility and the specific physical capacity that comes from growing up at altitude. He had grown up listening to the same teachings as everyone else in his community. He just could not stay still. He was mischievous in the way that certain people are mischievous when their energy and their intelligence do not have a shape that fits the available structures, when everything around them moves too slowly for what is happening inside them. He disrupted. He pranked. He moved through the village, creating the particular combination of exasperation and helpless affection that people produce in communities when the person causing problems is genuinely hard not to like. Hike. When the sounds of war began reaching the canopy, the distant noise of armies, the specific quality of Ionia under pressure that filtered upward even through the highest branches, Kong felt something he had not experienced before, a pull, not curiosity exactly, something more imperative, a sense that what was happening below was where he was supposed to be, and that remaining in the canopy was a choice he could not continue making. He descended. What Kong understood about himself at the moment he left the Shimon, he wanted to fight. What he did not understand, why. This gap between the wanting and the reason for the wanting would follow him through everything that came next and would become the most important question of his life. He had no training. He had instincts, unusually good ones, the product of a body that had spent years navigating the specific physical demands of canopy life, and he had the specific stubbornness of someone who has decided that the gap between what they can do now and what they need to be able to do is a problem that can be solved through volume. He fought anything that would fight him. He lost repeatedly. He healed. He came back. The losses taught him things no instruction could have. The specific education of encountering in actual combat, the difference between what you believe you are capable of and what is demonstrated to be true when the other person is trying to prevent your success. He was fast, he was strong, he was inventive in ways that surprised people who had assessed him based on the first few exchanges. None of it was enough consistently to win, but each loss was a clearer picture of what winning would require. He found the man in the forest by accident, or by the specific accident that is not entirely accident. When a person is traveling through a place long enough that the place eventually produces what they are looking for. The man was meditating. Kong challenged him immediately. The man stood up in a single movement, put Kong on the ground, and returned to his meditation. Kong had fought many opponents. He had never experienced anything like that. The specific quality of being defeated so completely, so quickly, by someone who then simply went back to what they had been doing, as if the interruption had been mild and was now finished. He came back the next day. The man defeated him again. Faster, if anything. He came back every day for weeks. Every day, the same result. Kong was stronger. Kong was faster. By almost every physical measure, Kong was more than the man in the forest. And yet every day the man put him on the ground, with the same efficient finality, and every day Kong lay there for a moment and tried to understand what the difference was. The difference was something he could not get at through fighting harder. He knelt. The man asked a question. He did not ask, "Why do you want to learn?" He did not ask, "What will you do with this?" He asked something simpler and more devastating. "Why do you fight?" Kong had never been asked this. He had never asked it of himself. The desire had been so immediate, so present, so much a part of what he was when he descended from the canopy that it had not occurred to him to interrogate it. He wanted to fight. He was good at fighting. He was going to get better at fighting. This had seemed like a complete sentence. It was not a complete sentence. He sat with the question. The man did not rush him. He sat with it across days, which was its own kind of training. The discipline of remaining with something difficult rather than moving past it. The patience that Kong had not previously identified as a thing he needed to cultivate. The man introduced himself as Master Yi. He began to teach. What Yi saw in Kong was something specific. The recklessness and impatience that Kong had always had were not problems to be corrected, but raw material. The instinct toward improvisation, toward doing the unexpected thing at the unexpected moment, was not a lack of discipline, but a different kind of discipline, one that formal training could refine rather than replace. Ye worked with what Kong was rather than trying to make him into something else, and what Kong was, properly developed, became something genuinely dangerous in a way that straight technique could not have produced. Kong learned. He also noticed something in Yi. The sadness was not always visible. Yi was not a man who displayed his inner life freely, but it was there, persistent, underlying, the kind of grief that does not announce itself but is present in the specific quality of someone's stillness when they are alone and not managing their expression. Kong's best jokes barely touched it. He tried. The humor was genuine. The sadness was more durable than the humor. Kong wanted to know what had put it there. Here is what Kong proposed. A training match. If Kong won, Yi would tell him what he had been fighting for, and by extension, why he had stopped. If Yi won, Kong would not speak for a year. Yi accepted. He had by this point enough respect for Kong to be genuinely uncertain about the outcome. Kong chose the field. A poppy field, the kind that produces haze under certain conditions, the visual interference that certain plants generate when their pollen is disturbed at scale. He had scouted it beforehand. He knew what it would do to visibility. He knew that Yi's technique, which was predicated on precision and accuracy in response to specific cues, would be disrupted in ways that Kong's improvised style would not. When Yi launched his first fast attack, Kong was not where he appeared to be. The figure Yi struck was made of woven straw in Kong's shape, left in place while Kong had moved. A clone, not magical, just tactical. The product of a mind that had been thinking about this problem from a different angle than Yi had. The single strike to Yi's temple came from behind. Yi was on the ground. He was smiling, not because losing pleased him, because what he had just watched demonstrated something about his student that he had hoped for but not been certain of. Kong had not beaten him with strength or speed, both of which Yi still exceeded. He had beaten him by thinking about the problem differently than anyone trained in standard technique would have. By being, in the most complete sense, himself. Yi kept his end of the bargain. The story of the Wuju village. The chemical attack. The deaths that Yi counted as his responsibility. Not because he had ordered the weapons, not because he had used them, but because his effectiveness had made them necessary, had forced the escalation to the kind of warfare that made no distinction between the soldiers stopping it and the people living near where it was stopped. The hundreds who died because he had been fighting, he had stopped because he could not answer why, because the cost had become visible in a way it had not been before, because the question he had been carrying, "Why are you fighting?" had found no answer that could hold the weight of what the answer needed to justify. Kong was quiet for a long time. He had come from a community that chose not to engage with the world's violence. He had always understood this as safety. What Yi's story revealed was its other dimension, that the choice to not engage was also a choice to leave the people who could not make that choice to face things alone. The Shimon were not peaceful because the world was safe. They were peaceful in a world that was not, and the people in that world carried the cost of their peace. Kong said, "You fought to protect people. Whatever the cost was, that was worth the cost." Yi looked at him. He realized, needed someone else to say it, not because he could not think it. He had thought it many times in the years alone in the forest, but because thinking it alone was not the same as someone else seeing it, naming it, confirming that the thing he had been carrying did not require carrying the way he had been carrying it. He gave Kong the staff, he gave him the name, Wukong. They walked back into Ionia together. If this story reached you, subscribe. Every week, the full lore of a League of Legends champion, told the way it deserves to be heard.